New episode of Serial for May 2024. Like every month, I'll be going through pictures taken the previous months or pictures I've edited, and we directly are going to start with film, and that's with using a camera which is a Canon MC from 1984, a camera I really like to use, autofocus, and don't have many options, manual options on it, basically none. And that's using an expired film from 2005, Kodak Gold 100 ISO. And I kind of like those two pictures. The first one, this detail of a car in Switzerland. I kind of liked how the elements have slowly transformed its bright blue, into something with some interesting texture. Or this bike, it's an autofocus camera, so sometimes it completely messes up. But here, I think this broken bike was interesting per se, and it gives also a good idea of how the lens renders on this camera. It's a 35mm lens, but it's 2.8, but it's got some really interesting characteristics. Here's this picture that's actually same camera, same equipment. That's the view from the south of Reykjavik, looking south from Reykjavik. The beaches, the black sand beaches, and the mountains at the horizon that are where the current erupting volcano is. It's a little bit more on the right, but gives you an idea of the ambiance. And I really like the rendering of this camera when it's in focus. It's most of the time in focus, not many misses. And I really like the rendering, the color rendering of this film. It may be almost 20 years expired, but really nice rendering, nice grain. Here, two pictures, same equipment. That's in California. I think on the left, it's more in the Silicon Valley somewhere, near Palo Alto. Just details of vegetation, which I found interesting. I really like the rendering here, the greens, how they're rendered by this film. I do like the bokeh also of this lens. Or on the right, that's the Pacific Ocean and all those plants and the flowers that are slowly coming up. And that's slightly down south from San Francisco, near Half Moon Bay. Here again, same equipment. I like to use my films when I travel. I like to start a film in a camera and just bring my camera along. For those who've been following this series, I've talked a lot about this. I have lots of cameras that are just filled with a film, and I just take whichever. And so I have some combinations of moments. On the left, that's in the Silicon Valley. That's one of those big oaks in the region, the native oaks, and one that's fallen. I think I have other pictures further. Or on the right, that's a detail of a garden in the central neighborhood of Reykjavik, 101. I really like those flat lights, those lights that come really from an angle. And yeah, really interesting rendering also of this film, this expired film. As I was using this Kodak Gold 100, here are the two pictures. The one on the left, that's the same equipment, using the Canon MC, the Kodak Gold 100 expired. But I happen to have another camera with me that's basically quite similar, using a film which is the Harman Phoenix 200 ISO, kind of an experimental film from Harman. They're the ones who make the Ilford black and white film. That was an experiment trying to do a new emulsion, a new color emulsion, and that's using a Minolta CLE Leica M mount compatible camera with a Leica Summicron 35mm f2 lens. Same place, same moment, just to give you an idea of how different the rendering of a film and of a lens can be on the subject. I like the crispy looks of the MC and the Kodak Gold film, but I do like this sort of dreamy and the colors of the Harman Phoenix 200 ISO. I do have some difficulties still using the Harman Phoenix, even so it's one of my favorite films, because it sometimes renders weirdly the colors, and it's hard to... I have still some difficulties understanding how it's going to render a scene. Here again, two pictures, same equipment and same positions. So the Canon on the left, the Harman, the Minolta and the Harman Phoenix on the right. So very different rendering of the colors. This warmer and bluer rendering of the Harman Phoenix, and this colder, more close to the reality of the expired Kodak Gold on the left. There's some artifacts in the way I scanned the film, but that's not the point here. I thought it was interesting. I don't do that often, comparing films, but I might do that a little bit more in the future. I find it's interesting to see how important the equipment is. Here again, same thing. I mean, on the left, that's a Canon with the Kodak Gold, the Canon MC 984. I really like that picture. I like the curves. I like the composition. I like that kind of graphic representation. But I happen to have the Leica SL2, so that's a digital camera, with the Jupiter 3 50mm f1.5 Soviet-era lens. That's in Santa Cruz. So obviously it's not the same focal length, 35mm on the left, 50mm on the right. But just to show you how important it is to have the equipment you want, to understand the equipment you're using and that you're taking with you. I could have backed up a little bit to have the same scene than with the 35mm on the left, but I couldn't have the same rendering. So it's just to make the point that it's not the equipment that makes the good photo, but the equipment is gonna let you do things that you won't be able to rework in post-processing. So that's a myth. Just a good example, I think, of it. Again, two pictures where I compare here the same equipment. Canon film on the left, Leica SL2 with the Jupiter 3 on the right. And here, just to show the opposite, I preferred the picture from the Canon MC in the previous two pictures. Here, I definitely prefer the Jupiter 3 on the Leica digital rendering. The colors are more like I want, the details, also the framing. The 50mm, I'm in a plane, so I obviously have different framing with this lens, not the same field of view. It depends. The equipment you have doesn't fit all situations, very rarely. The Jupiter 3, here are two pictures. I've been using it a lot those are the latest weeks because it's a very compact lens. It's cheap. It's got a really good reputation. I had it for a while and didn't really use it. So I want to do a video about it. And I want to really dig a little bit deeper in its performance and capacity. I think it's got potential. The first picture on the left, that's from a bus, the bus going to the Keflavik airport in Iceland, near south of Reykjavik. I really like the bokeh. There's something, the geometry is really nice. It's really an old school way of rendering images, but that's an old school construction. And on the right, that's a picture from the plane, same equipment, of Greenland. I've got a few here. There's a series of pictures I've taken. Of course, I kind of chose when and where, but those big valleys, those huge mountains, and those white plains, very impressive landscapes in Greenland. And here's a Jupiter 3 with the Leica SL2. It's a good combination through a plane window. I think it renders pretty well. Obviously, the sceneries are just phenomenal. Those huge plains, so on the left, the mountains, on the right, that's basically ice, with those looking small clouds, but they're pretty big, we're pretty high here. Here again, that gives an example with those two pictures on the left. That's the ice that's breaking slowly. That's more towards east of Greenland. And on the right, one of those glaciers that goes down in the valley where you have this frozen water, those fjords with ice on it and snow. Really beautiful sceneries. Looking forward to go there with my feet on the ground. Just to cut in the middle of this Jupiter 3 series, because I have a lot of those this month, here are two pictures. We're going back to film. That's Kodak Portra 400 ISO film, 120, using a medium format camera, a pretty big medium format camera. That's the Fuji GW690. It's a 90mm f3.5 fixed lens. It's a rangefinder. Very interesting camera to use. It's got a really interesting history also. You can go online and check it out. I'll probably do a video in the future, but in the meantime, it's an interesting camera that was, I believe, meant to take pictures of tourists in Japan, but nonetheless, very interesting rendering. I'm doing those pictures for a project of mine, but that's Iceland. Lots of iron in the ground, so when water kind of stays, you get this corrosion, the oxide comes out, the reds, very interesting colors, and they're kind of increased with Portra, the Portra film that kind of makes things even more colorful, and some blue from the sky that reflects. Really like those two pictures. Pretty big surface on the 120. It's 6x9 surface of exposure on the film, so you don't have that many shots on one film. Here, going back to digital, the Leica SL2, the Jupiter 3 lens, 50mm f1.5. On the left, that's arriving on Seattle with the sunset. Kind of like the looks, very soft and blurry. That's really one of the main characteristics of that lens. Can be disturbing depending on what kind of photography you do. You can do some post-processing and kind of remove some of this diffusion. But yeah, if you like it, it's a really nice lens. And on the right, that's Mount Rainier near Seattle. Seattle is a little bit, it's actually in between the two pictures. That's going up. Actually, the picture is taken later than the sunset. As you can see with the lights in the city, that's, I believe, Tacoma underneath. And this sort of boreal northern light you see on the top, that's actually this weird LCD system inside the plane window, which is supposed to dim the light. It actually had this weird opacification coloring, which I kind of played with for a while. I thought it was interesting. It's not real. This pinkish, bluish color is not real. It's real, but it's from the plane window. It's the polarization. Here on the left, still those two pictures, same equipment. On the left, that's inside that plane. I wanted to play a little bit in lower lights with this lens, see how the bokeh happened and how, with high contrast in low light situations, what kind of effect we could have. And yeah, as I'm focusing back there on the Stewart, that you can kind of imagine, I really like the rendering in low lights of this lens. Or when you have more light, like on the right, that's the San Francisco airport, SFO, with those typical clouds when it's not sunny, but more like, it's not foggy neither, but it's this sort of cloudy day in San Francisco. And I kind of like the details of that airport. Look, the colors, very similar to what we have usually in the region. Fits pretty well. Going to some more sunny times, that's Route 1, Northern California, south of San Francisco, going towards Los Angeles, actually towards Santa Cruz. It's going to come a little bit further away. Those two pictures, I just wanted to show how different the framing of one picture. It's the same place, obviously, but from inside the car and outside the car, after a little bit further than this grass overpass. I don't know how to name that. How different the story is. On one, you really evoke quite explicitly the travel. You're inside the vehicle. You're framing a lot of things. You have the road. You have the lights. The ocean. You can imagine the wind. And on the right, you basically focus more on the coast. You still have the road. There's still some implication of traveling, and you see some cars. But yeah, I just wanted to show those examples to think about putting your subject in different lights, because when you're going to read them afterwards, you might find some interesting things and very different narrations depending on what you took. Here, same equipment, same lens, same camera. That's in the Silicon Valley near Palo Alto, Menlo Park. Those native oaks. One is on the ground on the left, and the other one I'm looking from beneath, looking at the sky. I'm really trying here to understand a little bit better this lens, this Jupiter 3 Soviet lens. Yeah, I think it's very interesting. Again, here, the same equipment. As you can see, this Jupiter 3 in stronger lights has quite a busy bokeh with those onion ring, a little bit like effects in the background. Slightly circular effect also overall on the bokeh. But really nice rendering, very poetic, very romantic, very good geometry, and I really like the rendering of the colors of this lens. It really adds something interesting. Okay, still same equipment. As I told you, a lot of Jupiter 3 this month. Here it was just 2 pictures of this diptych. It was just for the fun, because don't forget to have fun when you take pictures. I don't like traveling. We'll see in the next pictures, the pictures coming after. But I don't like always being behind the lens. When you travel, when you walk around, when you wander, I think it destroys your mood, your understanding of the environment in which you are actually going to take pictures. So I tend to use my digital cameras a little bit like film cameras. Take 1, 2, sometimes 3 pictures, except if there's a really exceptional thing, and then I'll take more. But I usually take just a few pictures, and here I was just having fun. Tried to follow the cat, tried to do something different. The pictures per se are not that interesting, but I thought it was interesting to have the diptych with this cat, which I'm following the jump of the cat, and so his head is just in focus. And the pigeon, I did the same, not the same place, but it happened that the pictures, I rarely reframe my pictures. It happened the pictures kind of looked at each other, talked to each other without any reframing. So I thought, let's go for it. Let's put some cats and pigeons from Reykjavik. What I was saying before, when I live in a place or stay in a place, travel through a place, I tried to really experience the environment, and having a camera between me and the real life tends to destroy the experience. So I do have almost all the time a camera with me, but I will just take, as I say, 1 or 2 pictures. And here, that's central Reykjavik. I'm a lot there right now, and I'm really trying to document also those new constructions and those old constructions. A lot of changes right now. And yeah, I'm trying to document that because I think there's some poetry, there's something going on, and also some interesting graphic stuff coming out of it. So here you are, same equipment. What comes out of it? Here, still same equipment. That's another neighborhood. Before was 101. That's 107, the west neighborhood. One of the supermarkets, the more landmark supermarkets of the western neighborhood, and sunset. And it's really a region. The northern, it's probably the same when you go very far south, and it makes sense. But I haven't been there yet. But the sunsets last really are so long. You have the time to look around, to change your lenses, whatever. Here I didn't do any of this, but basically that's a sunset from looking southwest. And yeah, the same sunset on the left, same night, but the sun is really taking its time. Okay, finally going back to something else, because that's going back to the Minolta CLE with the Summicron 35mm and using the Harman Phoenix 200 ISO film. Just a few pictures to end this presentation on this film, which I still find a little bit confusing. I really love it, but I have difficulties understanding the colors, starting to kind of get it. Either pushed at 400 ISO or at 200 ISO. I still have to test it at 100 ISO, underexposed, just to see. Overexposed, but yeah, here that's Gullfoss. I had the occasion to do a touristy tour in Iceland. I've done it a load of times before, but here some really close friends came by, so we did it again, and I took that camera and film with me because these are places I really know. So that's a Gullfoss. It's a huge waterfall. It's got an interesting history too. It almost disappeared more than a century ago when they wanted to make a hydroelectric dam. And now it's probably one of the most viewed touristic attractions in Iceland. It was probably more interesting when you visited 10 years or more ago, because there weren't all those infrastructures for tourists, and not the tourists either, well, way less, but it still is an incredibly beautiful place. And when you do those touristy tours, that's a golden circle in Iceland. I mean, the tour, it's a very usual tour. You also have loads of greenhouses, and that's a tomato plant. They make fantastic tomatoes. Doesn't look like it, but yeah, they taste good. They really taste good, and they make different kind of tomatoes. And here, the Harman Phoenix film actually renders the colors pretty well. The feeling of those lighthouses which are lit using local energy and heated by geothermal, obviously. So I think it's a zero emission production facility, and I kind of liked the rendering here with this lens and this film. Very interesting visit, actually. I've had done it a few times. To have a great tomato soup, by the way, if you pass by. If you go to Iceland, it's a really touristy thing to do, but yeah, you can do it. It's nice. Here again, 2 pictures, same equipment, same film. You have the plains of Þingvellir on the left with those cloudy days in Iceland. That's south. It's middle west of the country. Or on the right, on the right picture, you will have recognized on the right of that picture the Reykjavik Opera. On a really sunny day, the blues on the Harman Phoenix, and I mean the blues, the color really pops out. It's a really great film in that sense. I really have to understand it a little bit better, but it's a really great film. I kind of like that photo of the Reykjavik Marina. Here again, same equipment, same film. The rest of my presentation are going to be with the same equipment and same film. The picture on the left, I forgot to make the focus. It's a rangefinder camera, but obviously I made something wrong. And you can really see those greens and blue. I did a presentation about the Harman Phoenix, my first roll before it came out. And I was pushing it at 400 ISO, and it was even more marked. But low lights tend to bring some greens and some blues, and the highlights tend to go into the magentas and the soft and warm colors. And I think this blurry picture gives us a good indication of that. Or on the right, that's a picture which better exposed, but that's in Bellevue. The one on the left was Geneva. The other one is Bellevue. It's on the coast of the Geneva Lake, of the Léman Lake. Or here, 2 last pictures taken with the same equipment. On the left, both are in Reykjavik. On the left, that's the 101 Central neighborhood. A good idea also was the high contrast of how the rendering of colors happens. Those dark blues and greens and low lights, and they're more magenta and warm yellow, orangey colors, and the better lit zones. Really interesting film, and I like the grain. It's you may not like it, and it's not for everything. I obviously will keep using other films, but for a situation like the one on the right, that's 112 postal code neighborhood of Hamrar, I believe. That's north of the central part of Reykjavik. It's still Reykjavik. I kind of like this sort of ambiance. It was the sun going down behind the clouds, and here the Harman Phoenix really gives those colors, adds to the drama, but it actually renders more, in my opinion, the sensuality of the moment there at that time. So yeah, the importance of choosing your equipment and your films and sensors. Anyhow, hopefully that was entertaining, and yeah, catch you next time.